Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome to our channel. I am Carrie. I am not Sarah and I've never worked at Starbucks. I am a thrift shopper though, so I found a nice apron and I snagged it. And for the first time ever, welcome to my kitchen. I don't think I've ever filmed anything inside the house or in the kitchen, so welcome. Today I am making meatballs. I'm making one batch for dinner tonight and another batch to put in the freezer for another night. If you're gonna go through all the trouble of making meatballs, you might as well make double and make 2 dinners worth. That's what I think anyway. So we're doing meatballs, and I loosely base them off of my meatloaf recipe. And for the longest time, I have used this cookbook in the meatloaf recipe in here. It's called Create Your Own Meatloaf. And my mom actually gave me this book, I think when I was when I turned 20. I got my first apartment and she gave me that cookbook. But anyway, that was, a few years ago. Maybe a couple dozen years ago. It's been a while. Anyway, so I base my Italian style meatballs off of my meatloaf recipe. I just make a few modifications and I'll walk y'all through that. Let's get started. I'll see if I can turn this camera around, see if I can make this work. Okay, hopefully this will work and you'll be able to see everything I do. First of all, I need to preheat my oven. My meatloaf always bakes at 350, so I'll get my meatballs at 350. Okay, so we always have homegrown beef. We actually, in the past, have gotten beef from my parents. They have always raised cattle. For 30 plus years they've raised cattle, and we've always gotten beef from them. But they recently sold their farm and moved next door, actually. So they don't have cattle anymore, so this might be the last batch of beef we get from them. But we are planning to get a steer ourselves. We have someone who has a bull calf that he's kind of holding for us. We just need to go get it. It's a relative, so that's why he's being nice and holding it for us. Well, my mom and dad just moved and got them settled, so hopefully we can get that soon. So once we do, I'll take y'all along and show you. We've never raised beef before, so we've never raised cattle. Goats and chickens, we're not really good at goats, but we do it, Oh, gosh. So anyway, here's our beef. I'm doing 2 pounds. And you know what? I don't like touching raw meat, so let me wash up real quick. And you know what? To be clear, I didn't even actually touch the meat. But when you have beef in those packages, they leak. So the outsides of them had quite a bit of blood on it. Okay, so here's our beef. The recipe calls for, it actually calls for breadcrumbs, and I don't do breadcrumbs. I like oats call me crazy, but I like oats in my meatloaf. So I'm putting oats in my meatballs as a binder. And that's only 3/4 cup is half of the amount I should be putting in. I'm splitting it with, I'm not going to measure it. I'm splitting it with Parmesan cheese. I'm going to put about 3/4 cup of Parmesan cheese in here because we are making Italian. And you know what? This is like the best deal on Parmesan cheese. Can you see it? It's 6-ounce bag, and I swear it's like, it's cheap, $2 or less. I'm not exactly sure. I shop at Aldi, and although prices matter, at Aldi it's different because it's not like you have 3 different Parmesan cheeses to choose from. There's one. So anyway, salt, I'm only putting half as much salt. I'm putting a half a teaspoon because the cheese is pretty salty. And pepper, that's probably about a 1/4 teaspoon, which is plenty of pepper. And then dried minced onion. You can do fresh onion. I used to do fresh onion in my meatloaf, and then for whatever reason, it started. My stomach didn't agree with me. I don't know why. So then I would chop fresh onion and saute it a little bit in olive oil or butter, and then add that. But then I was like, this is too much trouble. I have to do this every time I make meatloaf, and I just want to make meatloaf. So I just use now dried minced onion, which I buy in bulk there's a bulk food store not far from us. So it calls for a 1/4 cup finely chopped or a tablespoon of minced. So I'm just putting in approximate tablespoons of dried minced onion. And then to make it more Italian-y, I usually have an Italian seasoning that has like basil, oregano, maybe one other herb, and garlic in it, but I'm out of it. So I'm gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of basil leaves and a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. You know, and it's okay if they're a little heavy, it doesn't really matter that much. And this is oregano from our garden. I have a little, in the landscaping right outside the back door, we have some sage and some oregano that grow there. So this is actually our oregano. So I love that. I just reused this jar from the store. Okay. And one thing that I thought was different about this recipe, we get milk from a local farmer, so I gotta shake it up. It calls for milk. You can use beer, milk, or apple juice or water as the liquid in your meatloaf. So I actually prefer to use apple juice. I don't have any apple juice, so I'm gonna use milk. And it calls for a 1/4 cup, and that was a 1/2. So there we go, we're good. And then I gotta put in 2 eggs. And can I tell you, I love these eggs. They're from we have some black copper Morans. Love how dark they are, love, love, love. But these girls have like the strongest shells. I mean, seriously, the strongest shells. It's kind of a pain, like when you're trying to be precise, you know, sometimes, okay, this is like honest time here. Sometimes when you bring in your eggs from your chickens, you know, maybe you don't clean them right away, right? That happens. So you have like a few days worth of eggs. Well, for me, they sit in our utility sink in our laundry room. That's where I always clean the eggs. If they're super dirty, they go there. If they're not dirty at all, they just go in the fridge. But, you know, sometimes, you know, they don't get washed right away. So I'll go in there and I'll grab an egg and it'll have a couple spots on it. So, you know, I want to crack the egg in a very specific spot so that when I put my thumb in to open it up, you know, I'm opening it on the clean side of the shell, not the dirty side. And these shells are so hard. There's my oven. She's preheated. The shells are so hard, you don't know where they're going to break at. So it's kind of a pain. I mean, because, you know, it doesn't work out with my laziness, I guess, is the part that's the pain. I want to be lazy, and they don't work out. They're too good for me. Anyway, if you're not using a potato masher, first of all, do you have a potato masher? Get one. This is the best thing to mix meatloaf, to mix these meatballs. I love it. Love, love, love. So we got everything in here. I'm pretty sure we got it all. I don't often talk and cook at the same time. Not to this extent anyway. So hopefully it's all in here. I think it is. So we're just gonna mash it up, mix it good. I love to do this so much. Okay. Yes, you can mix things expertly with your hands, right? It's the best tool you got. But 2 things about mixing meatloaf. A, sometimes the meat is really cold. And it freezes your hands. Like you have to take a break from squishing it all together because it's so cold. And 2, I absolutely hate getting raw meat under my fingernails. I don't even have like super long nails. They don't look good, but they're not super long, but I do not like getting raw meat under my nails. So anyway, with this method, you don't have to. So use your potato masher to mix up your meatloaf. Use it to mash your potatoes too, because I love hand mashed potatoes. Hand whipped, whatever you want to call it. Okay, did I put anything in here that was weird to you guys for meatloaf? Comment down below. What do you use to bind it? I mean, I'm assuming you use egg, but what do you use for like your little filler binder thing? Do you use breadcrumbs? Do you use cracker crumbs? Do you use oats? Do you use something entirely different that I haven't even mentioned? Tell me what you use. All right, we're almost mixed. See how clean my hands are? And they're not cold, and I'm not going to sit here for 5 minutes under the running water and dig raw beef out from under my fingernails. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. We're looking good, y'all. We are looking good. Okay. There we go. Let me drop this in the sink. Okay. So there we go. Let's move some of this out of the way. We're done with our cookbook. This is actually a really good cookbook. It's kind of like my back to basics, like, if you know, it has the basics, but it's got a lot of just really good recipes. You know, if you don't know how to make cinnamon rolls and you want a good recipe, I mean, it's been around for how long? How long have they been making that cookbook? 50, I mean, at least since the 50s, right? I mean, my mom has my grandma's. And that thing is old. This one's from the 90s. It's got to be at least the 50s or 60s, I bet. Anyway, I mean, if they've been making the same basic cookbook, just updating it for, you know, 60 years. It's got to be a good one, right? Okay, I'm putting my meat and my cheese back in the fridge. And on the cheese, I prefer to use shredded Parmesan like that instead of the grated that you get in the shaker can, because they add a couple things to that. It might have a preservative in it, and it probably has cellulose added to it to prevent caking. And when I buy Parmesan cheese, I just want Parmesan cheese. So I like to buy it shredded. Although I have, if I find it on a really good deal, I'll buy a block and throw it in the food processor and shred it myself. Let me get these oats out of the way. Okay, the last time I made this, and I made 2 pounds, I came out with 26 meatballs. So I thought that was decent. 13 meatballs per pound. So they were almost an ounce. And I don't remember how I measured them, so we're just gonna go with it. Now see, I don't mind doing this with my hands because it's not going in my fingernails. We'll see how good I am at getting them even. Am I even in the screen here? I hope so. So I've just got parchment paper on my baking sheet. This is a half sheet pan, if you know about sizes. It's like half sheet is like double. You can fit 2 9x13s in this. 9x13 is technically a quarter sheet, and this is a half sheet. And then a full sheet would take up your whole oven, maybe be slightly bigger than your regular size oven, and would be 2 of these. This is what I always bake on cookies. I mean, I use the heck out of these pans. I also have some that are a quarter sheet size that are just like this. I think they're not nonstick, they're aluminum, and I love them. All right, let's see how many we can get here. Or what we end up with anyhow. they're looking pretty good size-wise, don't you think? They're not too mismatched. They're pretty equal, pretty even. All right, I'm just gonna roll these babies up. Two more, I think. All right. What do we end up with? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 38 meatballs. I swear these must be the tiniest meatballs compared to last time. Because I swear I only got 26. Oh well, no biggie. Let me wash up and we'll get them in the oven. Okay. So size-wise, they look pretty even, don't you think? I'm gonna have a few that are a little smaller, a little bigger, but overall. So that means they should bake pretty evenly, which is good. And I'll probably leave these in for 15 minutes. I can't imagine they'll need much longer than that. So we'll do 15, we'll check them, see what they look like. Yeah, those turned out pretty good. I love seeing all the flecks, like the little green flecks of basil and oregano, and then all the bits of Parmesan cheese. That just adds, like, it adds seasoning, like salt, it adds flavor, and it helps bind them together, that cheese does. So that's super yummy in there. And my oven is over here. Ooh, shit things. God dang it, I just dropped that in there. Ooh. That's disgusting. I just dropped that in the raw meat. That's really gross. Okay, but anyway, there's the oven. So here we are. There's the oven. And there's my dish strainer Jenga. Anybody else play that? All right, I gotta fix that one there. You see him? I smashed him. So anyway, I'll fix him, get him in the oven, and then check back with you when they're done. All right, my oven is singing at me. So let's see what our meatballs look like. You know what? Ooh, I think they need a little more time. They still look a little wet. We want them to look a little drier, so we'll give them another, we'll give them 7 minutes. 7, is that too much? We will give them another 5 minutes. And then we'll check them again. After that first check at 5 minutes, I gave, well, it was actually the second check, right? We did 15 and then we added 5. I didn't like the way they looked. I thought they needed to be just a little bit browner. They had dried out some, but they need to be a little browner. So I turned my pan around and gave them another 5 minutes, and they probably went for 3.5 to 4 of that. So about 24 minutes they baked at 350, which I have a convection oven, so it automatically dials it down 25 degrees. If you notice that, I punched in 350 and I put it at 325. Or you didn't see that. You didn't see me preheat it. But anyway, that's why it said 325, because it's convection, so it dials it back 25 degrees. So I got my freezer bag here ready, and I'm going to maybe split them in half, maybe just give us 15 or so for dinner tonight, and then we'll put the rest in the freezer for another night. And I thank you all so much for joining me. Thanks for sticking with me while I got my hands a little dirty and made some meatballs. I hope we'll see you again. And until then, until next time, have a great day.